I could make a joke about how we're all crying and just letting mucus run down to our gigantic manly mustaches because we're not at the convention, but I've kind of moved on. I've moved past it, okay? I'm not crying as much. I'm at that point where I'm just like, my eyes are all dried out, and I can at least take solace in the fact that there are some new action figures coming out. I'm not sure, like, that kind of compensates for not being at San Diego Comic-Con, but whatever. Let's be sad together. I'm glad you guys were able to make it here today. So today's video, I'm actually going to do something. I honestly, I didn't want to do it like this because I felt like there's going to be something announced. So at the moment of this recording, I'm recording early Friday, late Thursday. So that's kind of the time frame where I'm getting my information from. But I'm almost 100% sure that by the time I upload this video, there's going to be an announcement, I think, on Friday from Hasbro. They're going to have like this live stream or this video that goes up, and they announce all of their new collectibles for across the line. I think Transformers, G.I. Joe, Marvel Legends. So I'm just gonna upload today's video forgetting about Friday. Okay, I'm not even gonna talk about Friday. I didn't even want to think about it. We're only talking about what we got to see at Thursday's convention day. We're going to talk about Hasbro's booth here specifically. I'm not going to get into every single thing because a lot of what was on display has already been revealed or released. There was that PlayStation Gamerverse Spider-Man wave that just got released not too long ago, but most of those figures have already been unboxed and reviewed, and most people have already had them in hand for quite some time. But I thought that I would talk a little bit about some of those collectibles or some of those little pieces of the display that they had there that we have not seen in action figure form. By the way, before I get too deep into this, shout out to Shartimus Prime because he was actually at the convention. This is his original video. I just took some screenshots from it, and you know, I kind of used those screenshots to break down exactly what was happening at the convention booth. So big shout outs to him. If you guys are interested in checking out his channel, definitely do so. Show him some love, and then I will put a link in the description to the original video. That way you guys can check it out. Like I said, I just wanted to do a quick little recap of it and give you guys my personal opinion. Now, as I said, I'm not going to talk about the stuff that people already have in hand because that would be a monumental waste of time. I just want to look at stuff that we haven't seen in plastic action figure form, and this is the first time. I think most of these had only been seen in digital renders or like at the live stream events where they kind of showcase the figure really quickly. But here they did, by the way, before we get into the actual video, they did a phenomenal job with the display. Like the booth that they had there, the display cases, they look absolutely brilliant. Top-notch work from Hasbro Marvel Legends team, or just the Hasbro team in general, but specifically Marvel Legends. They just absolutely hit it out of the park here. Now, first off, I wanted to talk about the new Thunderbolts MCU action figures. And here we have two packs. We have the Yelena with David Harbour's Red Guardian, and then we have Sentry along with US Agent. What's interesting here about both of these 2-packs, and I think it's something that we're starting to see more and more consistent from MCU Marvel Legends action figures, is that they're prioritizing body mold sculpt work over articulation. You can easily see it. Sometimes a lot of these MCU action figures don't even have butterfly joints, or they have like a mid-torso articulation that is kind of outdated. So look, honestly, it's a matter of personal perspective and a matter of personal opinion. Obviously, in certain situations, it's going to limit the articulation. To some of these characters and figures are not going to be able to get into crazy dynamic poses, and that's kind of what we're seeing here, well, at least to a certain extent. But yeah, you can definitely see they're trying to not cut up the body mold as much as they possibly can. They don't want any gaps. They want the body to seem a little bit more aesthetically pleasing, and honestly, I'm okay with it. Like, as long as they're consistent, as long as they continue to do that for MCU figures, and then maybe cut up the body mold way more with the comic book stuff. For example, the Maximum Spider-Man Marvel Legends action figure, that thing had a bunch of cuts all over the body, but it helped articulation. It helped the figure get into dynamic poses, and you know, I think that's kind of like the new standard for Marvel Legends, and you could see it definitely across all 4 of these figures. Sentry looks phenomenal, so does US Agent, but to me, the 2 figures that I'm the most interested in here has to be Red Guardian and Yelena. Primarily Yelena because it appears she has a bigger role in the MCU moving forward, along with Sentry and US Agent. But yeah, I absolutely love all 4 of these figures. The only real issue, and by the way, it's worth mentioning, Red Guardian has a ton of texture, a ton of intricate details all all over his suit. It's definitely not something that I expected. And just wanted to bring up Yelena's legs. I'm not sure if they're reusing that from a male body, or they assume or presume to maybe use those for a male body, but they seem to be a little bit too thick, a little bit too wide. I'm not sure if it's because they were going for like the sweatpant cargo style look here, which I think is something that she wore in the film, but I'm not sure. I feel like those legs are a little bit too thick. The mid-torso also appears to be a little bit wide. If I had to go out on a limb and take a guess here, it's probably because they plan on reusing that particular body mold later down the line for another MCU character, and it just makes sense. But at least from what I can remember from the Thunderbolts film, I'm not sure. This figure just seems to not be as like thin, as slim as I remember Yelena being in the film. But that could just be angles, maybe. I'm not 100% sure. But as I said, the body mold doesn't really seem to fit the physique for, you know, the live action actress here. On a side note, Sentry does have a really weird mid-torso. The articulation is closer to like the chest part, which is weird. It's kind of like that rotating ball joint or the floating ball joint at the mid-torso, but at a higher angle. So I'm not sure exactly what purpose that serves. I'm going to assume it's just to like not break up the body mold as much, or maybe you can actually get more articulation that way, but it's just very interesting. I think that style of articulation, or mid-torso articulation, was usually reserved for female characters in the past. Like that mid-torso section, or I should say the upper torso section, was actually divided like right under the chest. I actually had never seen that on a male character, so this is just going to continue to get way more interesting the deeper we get into these new MCU action figures. I'm genuinely curious to see people like actually receive these figures, unbox them, and open them, because we've just never seen that style of articulation before. We also got a really quick look at the new live action Disney Plus Born Again Punisher and Daredevil. They look really good. A ton of sculpted detail. As I said prior, I think that's really what they're going to continue to emphasize over articulation, because you can definitely see that there could be, you know, extra articulation points added, like the mid-torso articulation, but it's still nice to see both of these figures. John Bernthal does appear to have a ton of like extra pockets and gear all over his body. That's exactly what we expect. Only time will tell exactly how these figures look. I mean, just from the few images, I didn't really see the likeness there with John Bernthal as well as with Charlie Cox. But then again, it was just, you know, a quick little run through. So I'm going to assume maybe a closer look. We'll put the actual head sculpts into focus and we'll get a clear image as to whether these figures are going to actually look as good as they did in those digital renders that we saw like a few months ago. They also showed off that made to order Dragon Man action figure, which I think is either shipping at the moment of this recording or is very close to shipping. I think they were already sending out notifications and emails. What's really interesting about this figure, everything that they said that was going to be there is definitely there. Like some of the close-up shots that Chartimus Prime was able to get here definitely show scales. There's a ton of detail. It's very easy to see that there's some extra paint added. There's some extra detail there. And not to mention, there's actually like a pretty good amount of articulation for a figure of this size. I know we already have a pretty good idea of how many different articulation points a figure was going to have, but to actually see it, you know, functioning, or I wouldn't say functioning because, you know, we didn't actually see it articulate, but just seeing all of the articulation points like in plastic, it was incredibly impressive. Personally, I did not pre-order the figure, but I'm very excited for people that did, because I definitely feel like if what consumers are going to receive is this exact same figure in the display, people are going to be very happy. They more than delivered on exactly what it is that they said they were going to do here. They also had the new Gamerverse wave that was supposed to have like Psylocke, Thanos in a 2-pack. There was a Wolverine 2-pack. There was a Captain America along with a Venom. There was a Juggernaut action figure, and all of these look absolutely brilliant. I think we've already seen some of these reviewed and unboxed. I think we're still waiting on like that Venom 2-pack if I'm not mistaken, and then the Wolverine 2-pack. We got a closer look at the Juggernaut action figure as well, and basically everything that I've been saying about all of these figures and how well designed they are and just how intricate the body molds are all together. I just can't get enough of it. I think they're doing a phenomenal job. Sometimes these small little improvements, you might not be able to see it unless you actually see the figure in person, unless you really take a closer look and dive into what it is that Hasbro has been doing to these figures, because sometimes we just assume that it's like, is it a new body mold? Is it new technology, new accessories, things of that nature? But sometimes it's just like those minor little things, like, you know, extra little detailing, those extra little lines, an extra little wash on some pieces, that really brings some of these characters or some of these figures to life, and you can definitely see it here. Not to mention, I've already said this before, but that Wolverine, that might be like the end game Wolverine for quite a few years, like maybe the next 5 to 6 years. Same thing with Psylocke, like that body mold I think will be eventually reused for a more comic book accurate Psylocke, but that body mold itself is the end game Psylocke for like the next 5 to 6 years. I don't think they're going to be making any massive improvements to that. So this is the best you're going to get. Same thing with that Juggernaut. Even though you're getting a really big hefty figure, you're getting the new articulation points. But as I mentioned before, the sculpt work, it's just very busy. There's a lot to look at. It's definitely a very intricate figure. And I can definitely see where that extra budget went to when it comes down to that $60 price point. Then there were a couple of other figures that we've already seen unboxed and reviewed by quite a few different collectors out there and big content creators. There was the Maximum Legends Hulk as well as the Maximum Legends Spider-Man. Both of those have already been received. They've been beaten to death, but right next to it, there's that new Walgreens exclusive Spider-Man that is set to release very soon. And there is that Fantastic Four She-Hulk that people have been clamoring for quite some time. She looks absolutely phenomenal. I love the head sculpt on there, and I absolutely love the accessories that it's going to come with. And it's absolutely perfect timing, especially considering we're just right around the corner from being able to see Fantastic Four. Well, at the moment of this recording, we're right around the corner from being able to see the film in all its glory. And so this is just a perfect time to continue fleshing out on that Fantastic Four team. And then lastly, not only a big shout out obviously to Shartimus Prime, he was able to capture this particular little Dio set that they had going, but also a huge shout out to Hasbro, because I think I mentioned this at the beginning of the video, and I also mentioned it with McFarlane. They absolutely killed it when it came down to the way that they were displaying these figures, the way that the Dio sets were coming together. I absolutely loved it. It was absolutely brilliant. And, you know, point in case, we have the Sentinel X-Men 97 animated series action figures. These look absolutely brilliant. They put them in a glass display case. We really got to see how well they can articulate, how well they can display. There were the, you know, the alternate hands, I think was alternate face plates, was it? I'm not 100% sure, but they had them, they're displayed with a lot of other animated X-Men 97 figures. I absolutely loved it. This was probably the best part of the entire Hasbro display, just to be able to get to see those figures and you know, really appreciate them, because I think in terms of like sculpt work and paint, I think they were as simplistic as they possibly could make them for under $200. But where you really get to see the figures kind of come together extremely well is with those articulation points. You don't expect figures that big to be able to articulate and hunch over and look really well in semi-dynamic poses, but they're able to pull it off here, and they're going to look phenomenal with that X-Men 97 wave. Now, I should clarify, this isn't like all of the reveals. This is just what was on display at the booth on Thursday. So eventually I think we'll get, you know, a closer look at what it is that got revealed, what it is that is going up for pre-order on Friday. So I'll try to do another video. I'm going to come back around and then cover everything that was revealed on Friday. So stay tuned for that. As always, if you guys enjoy this type of rambling action figure content, make sure to stay tuned. We are uploading pretty consistently. Stay safe out there. Enjoy the hobby. Pose your action figures. Keep up to date with all of the SDCC stuff, because there is a ton of stuff being announced. I'm going to try to kind of, you know, comb through everything, give you guys a quick little condensed recap, and then just give you guys my personal thoughts and my personal opinions on everything that is being announced. If you guys are interested as well to show a little bit of love to Shartimus Prime, make sure to do it. I'm going to post a link in the description to the original video where I got the screenshots from. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Stay safe out there. Make sure to enjoy the hobby, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you.